A quick favor before we start, if you love the Blueprint podcast, please rate and review us wherever you listen. It makes a huge difference. Thanks, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Barnet Bain. Barnet is a writer, filmmaker, and one of the sharpest minds in creative transformation. He's worked with Fortune 500 leaders, taught at Columbia, and created films like What Dreams May Come that push people to rethink possibility. Barnet's new work digs into how we create connection, meaning, and imagination in a world that's running low on all three. This conversation is about unlocking the parts of yourself you've probably been underusing and learning how to be a good friend. Barnet Bain, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Hey man, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. Your new book, How to Be a Friend in an Unfriendly World, comes out on December 9th. What inspired you to write it, and what do you hope readers walk away from with it?
Oh man, well, I didn't write it because I thought I had it all figured out. I wrote it because I realized that I wasn't that great a friend. I realized that I didn't know how to do it, and that there were people in my life that I called my friends. I was certain they were my friends, and I would disappear on them, or I wouldn't see them for a very long time. And sometimes I'd marvel, wow, I'd say we haven't seen each other for such a long time, and it's amazing we're still such great friends. At the same time, I realized I have a little garden outside my office, and if I don't water it, things don't go well. And I said, I am not taking due care with my circle of friends in the way that I would even with my garden. And so I thought, I want to get a little better at this. And I began to do some journaling and some thinking about it and a lot of writing about it. And eventually I had a big body of work. And the book emerged out of that. I thought, this is worth sharing. There are things here that are valuable. I learned a lot in this process, and they're valuable.
And so
2,000 years, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, was there something going on in your personal life that kind of reflected back to you that this is something you should pay attention to?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Because there's always that one person that they say something to you and you're like,
you're exactly right. So a while back, my daughter went away to college, and it was her first time away from home, and she returned, and we went out for dinner, just her and me, which is heaven. And I'm out with her, and she's excitedly recounting her new life on her own. And I notice I keep coming at her with questions. Who's she hanging out with? What's her course load? Do I approve of her friends? And
right.
Finally, she goes, whoa, hold on. Who am I? Who's this? What happened to my dad? This is not how you showed up for the first 16 years of my life.
Why are you curious now?
Why are you not just curious? The curious is good. Why? There's something else going on here, like a lot of judgment. And I had to own it. It wasn't just curious. Do I approve of this? Do I like this? I'm measuring this. Is this good or is this bad? And, to give her credit, she was straight with me. She said, this really hurts. I'm really disappointed, and I really feel judged, and this really hurts. And I thought, I don't want to be like this. And I didn't really know what to do with it. A little while later, I'm out walking near the house, and I come into this park, and I see a street performer. And this guy was way cool. He had these two long sticks, and in between the sticks, he had a length of yarn, and he would dip the yarn into a tub of water, of soapy water. And he'd make these enormous soap bubbles, and he'd do these incredible things with these huge soap bubbles. And then for his pièce de résistance, he wrapped it up he built this bubble. It was so big that he could step into it.
That's cool.
And I thought, a penny dropped for me, and I thought, this is what is going on with me. This is what I do. I have built this bubble of fixed ideas and thoughts and beliefs about everything, about everything. There's nothing that goes by that I don't have an inner commentary. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Is this good? Is this bad? Could I do better? Is this fine? Is this nothing? And I realized I live inside of there. And as first happened with my daughter, if somebody doesn't meet me in a way that comports with my bubble, doesn't work out so well. And I thought, wow, I live in this bubble. I'm not even fully aware of it. I need to become aware of it, because anybody that I meet that doesn't match my bubble of thoughts and beliefs and choices and decisions and all my cultural conditioning and my childhood conditioning, my education and my religion and my race and my politics and now my algorithms, if they don't match, I have, there's a spectrum of comfort and discomfort that moves along. And if they're too different than for me, then I either judge them, sometimes passive-aggressively, sometimes mercilessly, right, or I ghost them. They become invisible to me. So I thought, okay, well, this is the kind of thing, that you have an insight that there's, those moments where you have a realization and there's no stepping back from that. You can't unrealize that.
Yeah, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee that. And I thought, this is not who I want to be.
That's a question that I think so many of us get to at some point, is acknowledging and recognizing it's awareness, right? You're coming into the awareness of who you are as a person, and I don't actually like this anymore. I don't like the way I show up. I don't like the way that I speak. I don't like the words that I use, not only with myself but with other people. And so I'm constantly in this place of judging kind of behind the scenes, and of course that's going to impact all of your relationships, because there's an energetic exchange that happens when we're with somebody. Even through the camera right now, we're having this energetic exchange that you can feel, does this align with my core beliefs? Does this align with who I am? And if it doesn't, like you said, you want to ghost it. You want to get rid of it. You want to avoid it as much as possible. And then it just doesn't exist to you. And how relevant is that to what's going on today?
Well, today it's perhaps more aggravated than ever before, certainly ever before in my lifetime. But I imagine that we are more dramatically in our bubbles than maybe than at any time in history. I'll go so far as to say that. I'm no historian. But 2,000 years ago, a guy named Marcus Tullius Cicero, a Roman senator, wrote a book called How to Be a Friend. My book title, I decided when I titled my book that I would pay deference to him by borrowing his title. What was amazing to me in the reading of that book is that very little has changed in 2,000 years. We haven't learned how to be friends. And it's not that we haven't learned how to be friends. It's that we don't live in a culture that gives us any models or instruction about how to be a friend. We get instruction on everything else. We have STEM curricula. We have everything else. But we don't have basic instruction in civility. Now, once upon a time when I was a schoolboy, and I was a schoolboy in Canada, so I'm sure it was very different here, but as a schoolboy in Canada, we had courses every Friday afternoon in civility and something called ethics and morality. And, I'm not one of these guys that's talking about the good old days. They probably weren't that good. But I'm not really sure what I learned. Obviously, I didn't learn enough from that to give me insight and awareness that I had been living in a bubble for decades and decades and decades. And that, like Narcissus, anybody that I saw that reflected back who I am, I loved. And sometimes I'd go as far as to say, like with my daughter, I'd say, you have unconditional love. Well, she pointed out, it's unconditional until you hit the conditions. Then suddenly, a lot of conditions. So, back in the day when I was learning about civility, it was your basic kind of 10 Commandments thing. Don't lie, don't cheat. And that's all great. But I don't even think we have that now. I don't think we even have that much now. And, I don't have any big insights and solutions about how to remedy that. But I hope that my own little contribution here might be helpful to some folks, some of our listeners along the road. It was really valuable for me to do the exploration of it. I didn't know what I didn't know.
And that's a big statement right there. I don't know what I don't know.
I don't know what I...
There's so much awareness in that. And I love that you mentioned reading the works of the ancients, because nothing really has changed. When you look at interpersonal relationships and the challenges that we face, as you go through and you read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you realize very quickly, honor your mother and father and your grandparents and the experiences that they've had and the things that they're trying to tell you and show you, and what can you pull from those relationships that can help you kind of cheat the system in a way so that you don't have to repeat some of the same mistakes that they made. And today we live in a society that's very much kind of separating the family and pushing things more outward and making it more about the individual and, well, what can I get and what can I get from other people? How can I get you to meet my needs? And not really asking the question of, well, what can I do to be of service? What can I do for you to build and cultivate this relationship?
Yeah, that's absolutely my discovery. I came to the same conclusions, so I appreciate that. I mean, this thing, honor thy mother and thy father. It's a big component of friending, is honoring. And I looked deeply into what does it mean to honor another person. And according to the ancients, they had a whole different sense. I mean, we honor by paying tribute. We honor by genuflecting. And that is really not what honor is about. So when we look at honor thy father and thy mother, what it means is be willing to be changed by them in positive ways, sometimes by letting go of things that don't serve. It means you understand and you respect, you expect to see, and you respect, you look back at yourself and you see how you comport with that. And some of the things you say, these are models that are healthy, and these are models that I want to step back. That is what honoring means. And so in the friending equation, I thought it is a component of being a friend to honor the friendship, which means I need to be willing to be changed by my friends in ways that help me grow, in ways that, the beautiful thing about a friendship is that it is it's an arena, it's a relationship in which we get to rehearse these small acts of care and honesty that build into the fabric of society. And if we're going to thrive as a society or in a friendship, we have to be willing to know that it's a safe space. We have to establish enough trust so that we know it is a safe space. And that when a friend says something to me that is a little messy, I look at it and I see, well, am I flinching or am I reacting? And what is it about what is being said that is triggering me? And to realize that's a growth edge, not just to bury it or to lash out, but I'm willing to be changed by it. If there's really something for me to look at, then I look at it. And in that way, there is a goal. There are gifts in the friending relationship that you can find nowhere else, not even in family. I mean, yes, you honor your mother and you honor your father and you're willing to be changed by them. That doesn't mean you're willing to follow them blindly. You give them permission to be who they are without sacrificing your love for them, which is a lesson that my daughter taught me. I have to give her permission to go and live her own life without it being a reflection of mine, and show up for her and not make my love contingent upon that. So there are these elements that spin off from the honor piece. We get triggered in life, and in a relationship we get triggered. And can we develop a muscle to take a beat, to take a pause, and be aware, be conscious? I'm being triggered right now. Why? What is being triggered in me? And in the friendship, you have a safe space to do that. Now, I'm talking about a deep friendship. Again, back to my garden analogy, it's a garden I can manage. It's not 3, 4, 5 acres that I can't manage and the whole thing goes to seed. It's a garden I can manage. And the friendship relationship I noticed on my Facebook account, I have like 5,000, 6,000 friends. I don't know any of them. I never met most of them. And then I have a circle of acquaintances, and I am friendly with many, many, many people. And I like many, many people, but I don't have the ability to be attentive and to honor and be changed and to be vulnerable with more than a few. And if in our lives we have one, if we have two, what a miracle. Yeah. What a miracle. You have to become cognizant that everyone is carrying a backpack of their history and of their conditioning and their beliefs and what's happened to them. And you don't have to approve of it, but you have to respect the weight. And it requires slowing down our responses to life. And in a true friendship, you provide each other the space to slow it down, the space to be vulnerable. You make it safe. I mean, the biggest buzzkill for any friendship, even a casual friendship, is if a friend doesn't feel safe with you. That's the end of the whole thing. You just forget the rest. If they don't feel safe with you, it's finished. And safety doesn't necessarily mean, bubble wrap. It just means that you don't weaponize their vulnerability. If they're being honest, there's no room for sarcasm. There's no room for passive aggressive. It takes a certain amount of awareness to show up for somebody. It takes a certain amount of awareness to prune a rose bush.
Hey, Blueprint listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to truly unlock your own personal transformation, I invite you to explore the Self-Discovery Blueprint. This is where we dive deep into the strategies and insights you need to understand who you are, clarify your purpose, and build the life you're truly meant for. It's the comprehensive guide to your next level growth. You can find out more by visiting my Stand store, link in bio, or in the show notes.
Yeah, so much of this falls under learning to know yourself, who you are as a person, how you show up in the world, how you integrate yourself into relationships, who you are as a person in the world, understanding what that actually means for you, and then trying to figure out what people you should be letting into your sphere of influence and what type of relationships do you really want to build and cultivate. And so my question to you would be, how do we begin to select the people that we should allow in?
Well, one of the insights that I picked up from Cicero, not original with me, and just as an aside, I'll come back to this. If I can remember it, you'll bring me back. Part of my insight with the bubble is I asked myself the question, I have all these thoughts and opinions. I have opinions about everything. What if my opinions and my thoughts and my beliefs are original with me? Where did I get them? And I came to the conclusion that is perhaps the first original thought I ever had, that everything else is a hand-me-down. So that's something to ponder. And back to your question, how do we select our friends? I can't be a better friend to another person than I am to myself. And, you just alluded to that truth. You have to know yourself. So when I was a young man, friendship meant a lot of overdoing of a lot of things, a lot of driving way too fast after way too much partying. After there's a certain kind of camaraderie is the expression of a certain developmental experience of relationship. And it's good and it's normal. And then as we get a little older and a little more seasoned in life, the friendships have an opportunity to reflect back your values. It's really a lab for self-knowing, discovering your values, and seeing how you express them in the world. It's a lab. So since I can't be a better friend to somebody else than I am to myself, it behooves me to begin to ask certain questions about myself that start with, where do I come to all of these fixed ideas I have about life? Where do they come to them? And that can be really confrontive. That's a really edgy process.
Yeah, to
And
actually look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. That's really
yeah,
hard.
it's super hard. And now if you're in a friendship with a peer, somebody that is developmentally at the same place as you. Why do I say that? I mean, sometimes I have a young woman that I worked with for years. I said this to her just a couple of days at lunch, and she really got spun out on it. Like, if you can't have a friend that is super wealthy or a friend that comes from a different background, I said, yes, you can absolutely have a friend, but you have to be careful that there is a balance in your values and in your lifestyles. Otherwise, it makes it harder if it's imbalanced, because we have a tendency to give away power, to give away authority, to be persuaded, we don't see ourselves as clearly as when we're reflected back by a mirror that is more closely aligned to who we are. So there's no power dynamics involved. So when we come to ask these kinds of questions of ourselves, who am I? It helps to do it with somebody else. And they have to be trustworthy. They have to, again, provide safety. They have to reduce the fear of loss. They're not going to suddenly disappear. You get your weight into something, and you want to be consistent. It's kind of a hallmark of a good friend, is that you make a commitment. I'm going to water that garden every day, or it's going to perish. You reduce the fear of humiliation or shame in somebody else. So if I'm investigating, where did I get this from? Why do I feel why am I so triggered by my politics right now? Why do I have such shame around this belief structure? Why am I so adamant about my liberalism or my conservatism? I mean, where did this come from? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's not the issue. Where do I have these ideas entrenched about it's right or it's wrong? Where did that come from? So
that's such a huge piece, and it goes back to kind of what you were saying earlier with the backpack of life. And I love that you said that, because if you've seen any of my content, I do take a walk with me videos, and I wear a rucksack that, it's 30 pounds, and it's a reminder of my time as a police officer working crime scene and just previous life experiences that I've gone through, that I put that on. It's the weight of the world. I carry that with me, and I ruck for 8 miles. At the end of that 8 miles, I get to remind myself that I don't have to carry these things anymore, because I've already challenged it. I've already confronted it. I've already released that, and it no longer has power over me. So I take that off and I put it back down, and I have the ability to go throughout my day. Now, what does that do? It gives you a different sense of self, of who you are as a person, but then you also begin to see people very differently, because you recognize the level of pain and anger, frustration, irritation, sadness, loneliness, depression, resentment, and contempt that they're all going through at the same time. So you can have a little bit more sympathy for those experiences and what they're going through.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that's so well said. I don't think that, to your point, you become aware of what others are carrying. You become aware of what you're carrying. That's the first biggest step, I think. You call it the rucksack, and I call it the bubble. What's in that rucksack? What's in that bubble? Now, it's not about, I have to change my mind. It isn't about have-tos. So I'm not trying to change my mind necessarily, although I'm willing to, and that's hard to do sometimes. But it's about enlarging my mind. A friendship is a relationship that helps to discover, to see and be seen in terms of how we express our values, and to enlarge those values, not to become smaller, not to become more rigid, not to double down on our values, not to become belligerent about our values, but to enlarge them. It's, my day job is making films, writing films, directing films. And in that world, we have actors like to improvise. And what improvisation involves is yes and. Whatever comes at you, you don't ever get to say, nah, I don't like that, or I'm going a different way. You have to, yes, embrace it, and then spin it a different way, enlarge it. That's the entire key to improv. In my mind, it's also the key to great entrepreneurship, being a great businessman, being a good lover. Yes, and. You always take it and you expand on it. So we live in this bubble. We carry a rucksack. We begin to empty that rucksack. Take a look at it. How can I enlarge my sense of self around this?
It allows for quick global thinking when you do that. Years ago, when I went through a breakup of a long-term relationship, I went to Second City because I had a gift certificate. And if you're familiar with that, it's all about comedy. So you put yourself in this place of being able to sit with people that are a little more expansive and creative, and they're fun and they're funny, and you're going through a hard or difficult time. And what a great tool that was to become more expansive and put yourself in a place that you've never been before, to put yourself in a room where you think you don't really belong. And then you find that there's connection in all of those places as well. And then you realize that you're actually kind of funny too. And that feels really good, because maybe you didn't realize that about yourself, or that you can step into a little bit of improv, and, how does that translate into different areas of your real life? So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, and as you do improv, it's a great tool for self-discovering. I mean, this is what is true for me, things that are beautiful and good and true about me, and there are things that are not beautiful and untrue, things that are honest about me and are qualities, and there are attributes that I have that are dishonest and that are manipulative. That's true. Now, to the extent that I can admit that by myself, I notice anytime that I say, oh God, I would hate to think I'm that guy, I am that guy. You can pretty much rely on that fact that if I say, I would hate to think that I could do that, I could do that. And when we have that level of frankness with ourselves, we become more trustworthy. We become less reactive. Things that come up in the flow of our lives, somebody says something that irritates me, I don't lash back automatically. Suddenly, this awareness, this slowing it down, and this awareness allows me to enter choice making. And the more that we deploy choice making, the more powerful we become, the more trustworthy we become. And other people, friends and other people, they feel it. They feel safe with you, and they feel that they can say things to you, they can be a certain way from you, and your bubble, your rucksack is not racing ahead with judgments, and it should be this way and it should be that way. They understand that you're a person that is willing to risk discomfort sometimes, hearing something we disagree with, or reading something we disagree with, or listening something, or spending time with someone whose worldview looks a little different from ours. We allow ourselves to become enlarged. We don't have to agree with everything. It's not about signing up. We just allow ourselves to have an enlarged worldview. We become bigger.
No, in today's world, you have to agree with me, or you just simply don't exist.
Yeah.
I can't communicate with you. Sorry.
Yeah. That's a tragedy.
It is.
So, I sometimes bemoan that, and then I reset. I've trained myself to reset because there are actions that I can take in my life, and I don't live my life in the world of cable news or on the radio or on the inputs that I get, but I live my life in relationship to other people, whether it's intimate friends or an expanded circle of friends, or being kind and civilized, not as a performance, but as I'm deploying character now. I'm deploying values. Do I have enough sense of myself to deploy values? Going back to the ancients, the Ten Commandments is not a prescription. It's not a play. It's not, okay, we're going to play these roles, but we're not going to live them with conviction. It's not this is not a recipe for a performance. It is handrails. It's like the training wheels on the bike that I had when I was a little boy. They're training wheels. And eventually you find your balance, and they become integrated into your character, and you deploy them as values. But that takes practice. So, I assert that friendship is the relationship that allows us to rehearse, to practice expressing values, and that it's easier to do it, to become an expert at it, when you're dealing with it in a trustworthy twosome, than trying to do it try and do it at a whole family Thanksgiving dinner. See how far you get. So,
That's coming up too.
It's coming up fast. Yeah. The other piece is families. To a certain extent, we say, well, we can do that in families. We can do that in the context of a romantic love, or I've been married for many, many years, and that is a kind of a friendship. There are different textures to it. Romantic and family love often comes with certain contracts. They're either explicit or they're under the waterline. Friendship is voluntary. So I think of it as love without any kind of ownership or commitment, without obligation, or I should say without indebtedness. There's an obligation to it. You got to water the tree. Sounds like a dog, right? You got to water the roses. That's a little better. You have to water the garden. So there is an obligation, but there isn't an indebtedness. So that's very different. That freedom is what makes a friending really special, really unique. I've been married for decades now, and it's a vital and fabulous and beautiful relationship, and serves many of the same functions. It's a place in which we love, and in which we grow, and in which we expand our sense of self. We enlarge it if it's healthy. Sometimes, unfortunately, you see people getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But if you ascribe to the relationship version of the original Olympic idea, going back to the ancients, the Olympics were not there to crush the other person. They weren't there so that I could so that I could get a Nike endorsement and crush the competition. The point of the Olympics was to compete in order to elevate. A champion is one who elevated the rest of the field. So you competed with your opponents. You weren't trying to crush anybody. You were trying to elevate them to ever more surpassing performance. We don't hear much about that old code anymore, but it is what is baked into the marriage vows. Sickness and health, they sound a little bit like the post office. Rain, hail, sleet, or snow. You're gonna show up. But there are complications that attend a marriage. Many more gifts than complications, but there are complications. There are other dynamics that come in, sometimes financial, sometimes family, sometimes. A friendship is devoid of that. A really good one that is tended to with care and with honesty. It's devoid of that. And that freedom is what makes it a very unique and special place.
It's so interesting because so much of this life journey that we're all on is a journey of self-discovery. It's learning how to know, like, and trust yourself, to actually appreciate and admire who you are as a person, and then acknowledging that you can deploy the power of a pause. And that pause in your relationships is so important because it allows you to take that step back, zoom out, to assess the situation that you're in, your environment, the people that you're with, the time and the temperature, and you're getting to the really fine details of the experience. And it allows you to choose your second thought over your first thought. And that first thought is always the one that, well, where did that come from? Well, that's from your mom, your dad, your caregivers, your uncle, cousin, brother, sister, wherever. And you've taken these things with you for your whole life, but you've never really questioned it until now. Because again, we go back to, well, I don't like the way that feels within me. I want to create better relationships. So I'm actually going to question that. And then I'm going to choose that second thought because it feels better with who I am today. And it's far more aligned with who I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And that is the fastest way, the accelerated path to having that kind of power in your life is to develop it inside context of a friendship. That is the fast track. Otherwise, we wander around and these become intellectual ideas and, they're head trips and, they're concepts. But, where the rubber hits the road is when you're with a friend and you have a disagreement and you learn how to pause. You learn how to recognize I'm now feeling spun. And you learn how to pump the clutch and be with it for a moment. And as you said, where's my reaction coming from? In a friendship, they wait for you. And if they don't wait for you, you can say, well, you need to wait for me because I'm bobbing on this one. I'm ducking and bobbing on this one. So you need to wait for me. And to your question, well, how do you choose your friends? Well, there are the friends that are going to say, okay, all right, I'm with you in this. And then there are the friends that are going to dismiss that or they're going to tease you about it. Or they're going to foreclose on the safety component. You're suddenly not going to feel safe or you're going to feel goofy. You're going to feel awkward in that admission. And we all know the people in our lives who are going to behave that way. They're not bad people, but we also know the people in our lives, less of them, who are going to make the space. And we'll know that you will have their back when the shoe's on the other foot. And, the safety is the biggest thing. Nobody can drop anchor in a storm. So you can't offer safety to others until you've, as you said earlier, befriended your own inner weather. If you don't know what's rock and rolling you all the time, then you're fundamentally untrustworthy in a friendship. And your friend circle is going to reflect that. I thought we were supposed to meet on Friday. Yeah, well, you had something else to do. I mean, we all know this. We all have those relationships.
So for the people that struggle with performance, they feel like they're constantly performing for their relationships. How can they begin to drop that facade?
Well, they can ask themselves some hard questions. They don't have to go right to the hardest one, but I would say, look, I'm a performer. If I'm not Mr. Bojangles, then I think, am I being liked? Am I going to miss out? I mean, it's baked into me. And I have to ask myself, I have to remind myself constantly, I'm performing now. Why am I doing that? And what would happen if I stopped performing? Well, I would be very awkward and feel very uncomfortable because I do not know how to behave at a party, for instance. I don't know how to behave unless I'm performing. And so I just feel, but can I man up enough or woman up enough to say, well, let's see what happens if I'm in my awkwardness, if I spend the next 10, 15 minutes feeling uncomfortable? What's that going to be? What's the big deal? You start there. Nobody is saying that to be a friend isn't going to involve some shift in the way that you hold yourself and in your default operating situation.
Yeah, you got to upgrade that iOS.
It is a big upgrade, and it's a great analogy because you have a whole bunch of programs running, and one of them is when in a social situation or when in a situation with somebody that is imbalanced in terms of a power dynamic, financial, political, work, perform, get out that tambourine. And it starts with knowing that, okay, well, where did I get that program? It's a program. Not everybody does it. And I back up the program with, I have a whole kind of file of beliefs. Well, this happened. And where did those beliefs come from? They're never about the present. There are no beliefs that are about the present. Unless you're standing in the middle of the road and a truck is barreling down at you, that's about the present. But all the other programs and all the other performance anxiety is an old thought. It's an old feeling. And it's not about now. So when I was a kid, I couldn't, that is an arm wrestle that I'm going to lose every time. But I'm not a kid anymore. So the worst that can happen is I'm going to feel uncomfortable about operating outside my program. And you just try it. And if it's too much, you revert. But as we started off with, you can't unsee something. You go there, you can't unsee that it's a program. It's a workout. Eventually that muscle is going to become stronger. You're going to get a little better at it, a little more confident at it, and sometimes you'll slip back. And if it was a friend slipping back, you would have some understanding. If it was a friend, you'd cut them some slack if you were a good friend. So if you're going to cut a friend some slack, you can cut yourself some slack.
Definitely can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we are not trained to do it. We don't see a lot of models for it. Hey, I'm a filmmaker, and I cannot look at and see any evidence that there are any films that I'm aware of that model that. We learn by what we see and what we're exposed to. We certainly don't see that modeled in the culture. I never see it. It's not modeled by our leaders. I love my parents. I honor my parents, but I never saw that around the dinner table.
And what's so interesting about that, if it's not observed, coached, mentored, or modeled to you, then how the hell can you know it?
This is the value of a great coach. This is really the value of a great coach. It's not to horsewhip you into performance. It's to edge you into self-discovery. That's a great coach. And absent having a really great coach, you have a friend. That's what friending is. That is what friending is. We have a different understanding of what friending is, and it's based on, again, all the inputs. And the inputs are not inner-directed. They are received from outside. And all the inputs are, what are the ways that we can turn every relationship into a transaction? What can as you said earlier, it's more about what can I get than what can I give? What can I reaffirm more than what can I learn? And it's not so hard. We have one or two people that we tend to like a garden. And it's reciprocal. Just somebody has to step up and begin it. And it's reciprocal. It happens. And inside that relationship, we listen deeply to each other. It's not pausing to reload the next thing you're going to say. It's listening. With whatever inner dialogue is going on, you treat it like the radio next door. You're listening to the other. You're providing pleasure to another person, emotionally, mentally, physically, in ways that are appropriate, folks. Appropriate. Joy is not fluff, it's fuel. And fun is medicine. And friends do that. You honor, as we said earlier, where they're coming from. You do everything you can to reduce their fear of being humiliated. Ever intentionally tease somebody. This whole teasing thing. We learned that from a culture that had different models of what it is to be an adult, to be a woman, to be a man, had different models. And if you look at the quality of their friendships, well, there's a 2,000 plus year gap between the first how to be a friend and this kind of discussion. We are not the only ones having this kind of discussion, but inside this kind of discussion, Really? Do we have to show love for each other by teasing and humiliating each other? Really? Really? What
I
program
think in
are we?
some group dynamics, it's useful. I think when you're
Yeah,
working,
in a locker room, it's useful.
well, so in that experience, and then my experience as a first responder, it's a great way to interact with people, and you are creating a relationship, but at the same time, you're holding people accountable. And so there's an
Yeah.
accountability factor there because you talk about the safety and security portion of this. As a first responder, we want to be safe and secure with the people that we're working with because your life is on the line in certain moments. And
Yeah.
so we want to know that we can trust that person next to us in that experience. And so when something goes wrong or it doesn't go the way that it should, you might get a little bit of that teasing as a way to soften the blow of, hey, we need to do better next time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I totally 100% agree. And the distinction that I make for myself is that where am I coming from?
Yeah.
So as a first responder or as a coach in a locker room, you're teasing, where are you coming from? If I'm coming from wanting to diminish or reduce or undermine somebody's sense of self or their self-confidence or their ability to go out and do the job because they've been shamed. If I am coming from a place of understanding that this is a way to softly deliver a message that is going to be received not shame-based, it's going to be received in a way that uplifts, back to that Greek Olympian ideal. You're teasing somebody across the finish line. That's a whole different matter.
Intentions matter. That is for sure.
Intentions are everything. Where am I coming from? Where am I coming from? And we step outside this bubble. We realize that we're being weighed down by the rucksack. We pause and we take stock of, well, where am I coming from with this? Why is this so heavy? Why am I holding it? And where am I coming from with holding it? And where am I going? Where am I trying to do with it? Well, I'm trying to dominate, or what am I trying to do with it?
I think another good question is, do you like and admire the people that you're spending time with?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's such an important piece, and I would love for you to speak a little bit more on that.
Well, do I like them? What are the qualities that make somebody likable? What is it about someone that makes them likable to me? I find that those people that I like are kind. I very rarely like an a-hole. Considerate of other people. Honest. And if it's a personal relationship, there are figures in the world that I like that I don't know. But if it's somebody that I know that I like, then there are qualities in my relationship that they're the same qualities. They are people who know how to listen. There are people around whom I feel safe. I don't feel like they're suddenly going to, I admire scorpions, but I don't like them enough to get close to them. I don't, there are people that I like. I can count on not to intentionally try to shame me. They may encourage me with the loving tease, but they're not going to try and shame me. And there are people who I find who listen, who know how to listen. Those are qualities of being likable. Nowhere in being likable is they perform all these things. And again, I admit I'm guilty of that. It's baked into the strategy that I used to get along in the very early years of my life when things were not so pleasant. And as a little boy, that was the best I could do. I thought it was pretty creative to come up with that strategy. Like a chameleon, whatever you needed me to be, I'd be. I managed to survive by doing that. As an adult, that is not an effective strategy anymore. Most people can see through it. And what they see through it is behind a performer is somebody that is compensating for something, usually feeling not good enough, usually feeling I'm going to be rejected, usually feeling I'm about to be shamed or humiliated, usually feeling. And again, the antidote to all these things, to being a good friend, is you reduce your likelihood of intentionally hurting someone. You take steps in advance. They become baked in as your natural default character, that these are behaviors that you don't devolve to, that are the root causes of so many people's strategies to mask. People perform because they don't believe that the real thing is enough.
You're not going to like me if I show you the real me.
Yeah, well, try.
You'll just reject me anyway.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
What people don't get is that they tolerate me when I perform, and sometimes they like me as a clown, but they don't believe the performance. I'm a director. I promise you, nobody believes no one believes the performance.
Yeah, that word right there, they tolerate you.
They tolerate.
I'm sure there's people that are listening right now and they're identifying with so much of what you're saying about what it means to be a good friend and how can I be a better friend, but also the idea that, man, I really do perform and I'm tolerated. That's awful.
It's awful. It feels bad. It's a really bad feeling. That's the feeling of when I saw the Bubble Man. And I thought, wow, that is what I do. And people that I come in contact with have lots of reactions. And the best that I can hope for is they tolerate me. As you pointed out earlier, there's a certain kind of energetic thing that goes below the words, below the, it's called subtext. There's an energy that happens. Some people refer to it love at first sight. There's also, I tolerate you at first sight because some part of me has radar for BS. This is not the real you.
I think that's also important, is to be able to recognize that when you're in the company of other people, there is that energetic exchange, but you also subconsciously, you recognize when somebody isn't being their whole self, when they're not presenting the actual person that they are to you. And it very naturally pushes that person away from you because, well, I don't want to have that experience. I've experienced that before. This doesn't feel good to me. So you end up alienating yourself if you're, again, that performer.
Yeah. You never, ever feel good about yourself when you're performing, because even if you are embraced, what is being embraced is the performance. So it's not you. So you can never, ever escape feeling like a fraud and developing a resentment because it's not really me you like.
Yeah, you're like a chameleon.
And you can't trust the love because it's not you that's showing up. I have friends that are quite wealthy and they sometimes complain about they're magnets for people because of their wealth. And they cannot trust that the attention that is being showered on them is for them or is it for their wealth. And the kind of cousin to that is performers. I show up, I'm the life of the party, or I show up wearing this kind of image, or I show up, acting as if I'm all this or all that, and that is not authentically who I am. And if I have any kind of limited success, it's not for who I am, and resentment builds up. And that will crash and burn. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but that will crash and burn.
Yeah, it's also really lonely and isolating to have that experience. So for the people that, are in that state where, they have money, they might have status because of social media or having made movies or done other things that have given them that elevated status, and they don't feel like they can connect with people, what would you tell them to do from a coaching perspective?
I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, it would be per each individual. It would be, we would start with whatever. I'd begin by asking them what their biggest fear is that they're covering. I'd start there. And then you thread back. They're always, I think you put your finger on it. People perform always because they are looking for, in our world today, money, status, or power. And I include romance in that as well as part of the status piece. It's always about money, abundance, status, and power. And so one or all of those is somewhere deficient, or in the mind of whoever in the mind of the subject is deficient. And so they perform having money, status, or power. They put on a show of it and they present themselves in that way. But since it's unauthentic, They resent when, they can't trust when attention is paid to them. So if we were coaching somebody like that, we'd start with, we'd look at that, and we would understand that all the thoughts and all the feelings that one has about regarding their money, their status, their power, are not about now. They're old thoughts, they're old feelings, they're not about now. Now, somebody may decide they're going to go into therapy for 100 years.
You can do that.
You can do that. It's a long haul, but you could do it. There are shorter ways to do it. You just become honest with yourself. You drop the hammer. You say, I'm going to make a choice. I'm going to be real. Now that I saw that I live in a bubble and that I'm like Narcissus in the myth, saw his reflection in the water, didn't know it was him, and fell in love with himself. That's what I did. I'm in my bubble, and anybody that reflects who I am, I love them. When my daughter starts to become her own person, there's problems. So, we do that. And somebody begins to look at, well, I am behaving in an inauthentic way, and I'm performing because I want this, or this, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to choose not to do it. Again, you can go to therapy and spend however long you want to spend unpacking what happened to me, or you could just acknowledge it happened to me and I'm not going to do it. Now, I am not. I'm not giving this short shrift. I'm not saying, oh, this is the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes some issues are harder than others. Certainly, these are addictions. And some addiction substances are harder to drop than others. And some of them have biological components. But mostly, the performing that we do, the inauthentic showing up we do in order to curry friendship, which is inevitably false friendship and unsustainable, and we don't tend to it because I don't want to show up for it because it's not really me. It's a lot easier to drop the hammer on that one. You just say, I'm going to be real. Well, I'm not going to be liked. Well, you're already not liked. That's the fact. You're already not part of what you think you want to be a part of. You're not authentically there anyway.
Now, can you admit and accept that? That's the question.
Exactly. And if you admit and accept it and change the behaviors, I'm not all knower, all seer, but speaking from my own experience, there is a deep satisfaction that arises when you're honest and real about yourself. Just as the most, folks, for anyone who hasn't experienced this, what it is to fall in love with another person is heaven. What it is to get a glimpse of falling in love with your authentic self, that's off the charts. So, and when it begins to happen, there are others that gravitate to you because you're an authentic person. It doesn't have to be said. And if it's said, it's usually not an authentic communication. They just feel it. And then it becomes about, back to something you said earlier, how do you curate your friendship circle? It kind of self-curates.
Yeah.
There's not everybody you can have this kind of a discussion with. So already the herd is thinned.
Yeah. It's a hard conversation to have, the journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Because it all starts with you. You have to get to that place where you're asking yourself the questions, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What do I want? I think is one of the most difficult questions for people to answer at any given moment, no matter where you're at in whatever stage of life that you're in, because it's forever changing. So you find yourself in these different places with different experiences, earned wisdom that you've gotten over long periods of time that shift and change the way that you view things. So then to admit to yourself that, well, I'm different, and that when I'm different, there's a natural byproduct of things that happen all around me in my environment. I start showing up differently and people see that. Some people will reject me and say, well, I like the old version of you. And other people will be like, man, I really like this person of who you're becoming. This is amazing that you're so much fun to be around. And you have to be able to reconcile those things within yourself to recognize that, yeah, it starts with you. It's okay to change. It's also okay to admit that You know, you haven't always been a good person, but that doesn't stop you from becoming the person that you're capable of being. And unfortunately, for many people that are listening, they find themselves stuck in that place of they're living in the past. That becomes the limiting factor for who they're capable of being, and they never fully self-actualize to become that person. So for that person that's stuck right now in this moment as we close this out, what would you tell them on how to become the person that they were always meant to be?
Put down the phone, look someone in the eye, and really listen. That's it. People do not need us to fix them. They need us to be with them, to just be together with them. There's an unspoken message that is conveyed in that you matter. Sometimes you can distill it down and it just sounds so simple, and it's the highest wisdom that I have ever been able to glimpse. You're fully with them, says you matter. Try it.
To be fully witnessed by another person and not rejected.
And not fixed.
And not fixed.
I'm not fixed. Somebody says something to me, and my initial, because my performer, I have to fix it. Then you like me. So somebody says something to me, and my instinct is to leap in. So I have to remind myself to say, do you want me to fix or do you want me to listen? And 9 times out of 10, they just want me to listen. Especially, this happens with my wife. I can't abide problems. I have to rush in and fix it. And she just says, I'm not interested in your solutions. I just want you to listen to me. Finished.
If people would just learn that, guys, if you're listening, just pay attention to what he just said. You are to be a presence in that moment and to be with the other person. And again, you're allowing them to be witnessed by you and then not rejected. You're not fixing anything. You're not changing anything. It's that energetic exchange that we talked about a little bit earlier, and you are just being a pillar. You're being a presence in that moment.
Yeah. The greatest gift you can give somebody.
I was just going to say, what a gift. Barnet, thank you so much for being here today. Tell everybody how to get your new book and to reach you.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's in everywhere books are sold, or you can go to www.barnetbain.com. You can order it through there. And also, I have a free gift. I call it the Friendship Field Guide. It's particularly useful around the holidays. It's just it's something you can keep on your phone or in your back pocket, and it's sort of hacks. It's just you pull it out, because things tend to come up.
Is there an Audible version for this too?
There isn't yet, but there will be.
That's awesome. So the book comes out on December 9th. Make sure you guys get out there, get your copy. And of course, all of this will be in the show notes. Barnet, thank you so much.
Such a pleasure to be here.